Welcome to the program. Today I am going to interview angel parents, Becky and Jeff Bowie. Their daughter, Elizabeth Bowie, was viciously murdered 18 years ago, this July 29th. Thank you both for joining me today. We're so deeply sorry of the killing of your daughter, Elizabeth. And from what all I have read about her and our conversations, wow, we need more Elizabeths in our world.
That's
Yes.
true.
So tell us about Elizabeth. We know she was a seventh grade teacher, a very compassionate young lady.
Oh, there's so much to say about Elizabeth. Elizabeth was not perfect. None of us are perfect. But
Yeah.
she loved her Lord Jesus Christ, and she lived it every single day. She had been a short-term missionary in several different places. She had gone to Kenya. She had gone to Cambodia, Jordan.
She went to Jordan. Yeah.
And she did several local, statewide mission projects. I think probably Elizabeth would say her biggest mission project was at Marietta Middle School, which is where she taught. She loved those kids. She taught social studies, but she didn't just teach about the latitude and the longitude and about the the weather, the economy. She taught about the people. And I remember at the visiting hours, there was this special needs boy named Chris, and he came up to us, just so precious, and he said, Miss Bowie sold Coca-Colas, but she wasn't supposed to because it was against the rules. And I said, well, why did she sell Coca-Colas, Chris? And he said, because the money that she got from selling the sodas, she was buying mosquito nets for the people in Kenya. And it was just her love of the people that she was able to share with her students. And Elizabeth had a unique way of not seeing you, the person standing or sitting in front of her, but she rather saw your heart. And I remember one of the most beautiful stories she told us at the end of one of the school years. I think it was her last year. The kids were helping her clean up the room. You know, we always love to help the teachers clean that room and get some of the giveaways that the teacher was given throughout the year, and they were doing that. And she happened to be talking to a group of kids. I don't have any idea what, but this one little boy, and he was a black boy, and he said, all of a sudden he just said, Miss Bowie, you're not black. And she said, no. And he'd been there the whole year. She said, why would you think that? He said, I just always thought you were black. To me, she saw his heart. She didn't see a black seventh grade student in her classroom. And because that's how she saw him, he also saw her heart and not the color of her skin. What a beautiful, beautiful testimony I think that was.
Wow, she sounds like a very good person, genuinely good person. And none of us are perfect, Becky. So we certainly understand that. And here's another, a little younger Elizabeth. What a beautiful little girl, too, inside and out. Yes.
That was her high school graduation picture.
Okay. How did she get involved in mission work?
I think I always picture Elizabeth sitting up in bed in the morning and just sitting cross-legged on her bed and looking up and saying, what do you want me to do today, Jesus?
Yeah.
What do you want me to do today? She just loved him so much that whatever she could do, whatever she felt her purpose was here. She was going to fulfill to the best of her ability. And she loved people. She loved the underdog, so to say. She just wanted to help people. And I remember when she went to Kenya, and
Uh-huh.
she called us one day and she says, Mom, because Kenya just had, they have in the area she was, they have less than nothing. And the little 4 and 5 year olds are taking care of their younger siblings on the streets. And she met this one little boy, and she said to us, she said to me, she said, Mom, I think you and Dad need to adopt him. And,
My
and I
goodness.
said, well, honey, I don't know what to say. She says, well, Mom, it wouldn't be hard that you just sign the papers and you bring them home. It wouldn't be hard at all. I said, honey, I think we're too old. I don't think we can do that. She said, well, Mom, I just think you're being selfish. I mean, she would have saved the world if she could have.
Yes,
One
that
one little boy at a time, one little child
yes.
at a time. Yeah.
Signing that paperwork would be the easy part, Becky. There's a lot
Yes.
to it.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it clearly her calling was to bring Jesus Christ to the children, through her teaching, and that's so wonderful. As a teacher, how has it affected your family? I know the huge impact, and so many times people say, "Oh, you've got to move on," and just what forget about Elizabeth. We were never meant to bury our children.
Right.
Right.
Right. Right.
The issue, the best way I can describe which is using a common expression, when you suddenly lose a child of her age who's been around you for 28 years,
Mm-hmm.
it's like a train wreck for a family. So it affected all of the members of the family,
Yeah.
not only our immediate family, but also our cousins and our aunts and uncles, everybody, and our parents. Everyone was affected by this murder. It impacted all of us in different ways, but also very, very significantly. After her death, there were friends of ours that were trying to help us work our way through the crisis that we were in. One of those mechanisms was an organ or a program called Grief Share. So Becky and I did Grief Share for about 6 years. We facilitated it to help others, but it helped us significantly
Mm-hmm.
by participating in Grief Share. But in addition to that, the normal statistics that we were given at the time, I don't know how true they are, in excess of 90% of couples end up in divorce. So, it's a major impact, and it's
Yes.
impacted us. It'll be 18 years that we've been without Elizabeth, and it's impacted us for every one of those 18 years. So we started to talk about this politically with what can be done about this, and one of the reasons for this is really we don't want another U.S. citizen to have to go through what we went through. But there have been many more since us, as we've seen, at least we see on the national news.
Right.
So it's tragic. It's a very unfair um, uh, circumstance that we go through because of the impact right out of the blue, because we had no idea. I refused at the beginning to believe that she'd been murdered, and then I refused to accept the fact that somebody had hurt this little girl that
Yeah.
sat on your knee as a baby, and had to such an extent that she was brutally murdered. So it was just a terrible thing to have to go through, and we certainly don't want to see anyone else have to live and suffer through the same kind of consequences.
Our son is very, very protective of his sister. Um, And this we began to see after the death of Elizabeth. We all, when something like this happens, when someone wrongs us, it's hard for some people to forgive. But that's part of the grieving process. And we don't forgive. I don't forgive to say, Juan, what you did was okay. No, it wasn't okay. And it never will be okay. But when I talk about Elizabeth, as we sit here this morning and talk about her, he does nothing emotionally to me. He takes up no space in my mind and my emotions at all. We all have forgiven him at different times. I forgave him before I knew he had murdered her, because when we found out she was dead, the talk from the legal perspective was that it looked like she had died of natural causes. And they know about the hour within 45 minutes within when she was murdered. Because of computer, she'd been on the computer, and then when he got back to his brother's home. I knew when we found out I needed to talk to God, but I didn't know what to say. So I laid on the floor, and I know now, in the past 3 or 4 years, that it was not me speaking, it was the Holy Spirit speaking for me, because I didn't have the words to formulate to pray out loud.
Right.
But as I tell the story, I say, this is what I said, because that's what I thought I was talking. And I said, God, please give me what you know I need to get through the next seconds and minutes and hours, because I don't know what to ask you for. I said, you know me better than I know myself. Just give me what I need. And he gave me 2 things laying on that floor. One of them was a peace, that peace that passes all understanding. It didn't take away the pain, didn't take away the hurt. It took away none of that. But there was a sense of peace about the whole thing. Now, because we had been told it looked like she had died of natural causes, the second thing he gave me after a short period of time didn't make sense, because the other thing he gave me was forgiveness. And so I forgave before I knew there was someone to forgive. And then I pondered it for a while. And this couldn't have been when I forgave him, because she died of natural causes as far as we knew. And God spoke to me, not like you and I are talking, but I heard him say, I prepared your heart on that floor that day for what I knew you were going to know very soon. And so I've never had a problem forgiving him. And once again, I don't necessarily need him to come for coffee. I don't need any of that socializing with him. The only thing I want him caught for 2 reasons, even after 18 years, is so that, as Jeff previously said, he never does this to another woman again.
Right.
Because I, as a mother's gut, this comes from no police, no legal verbalizing. I don't believe it was his first time at bat.
Yeah. I believe that too.
I don't believe it. And so that he never does it again to another woman and her family, and so that I can share Jesus Christ with him. Because for me, I love his soul. Hear me when I say that. I love his soul more than I hate what he did. And God has given me the ability to feel this way and to be able to say this. because and I've had several talks with Satan over the years. And one time I said, Satan, you may think you're the winner in this situation, but you're nothing but the biggest loser, because all you did was send one of your henchmen to murder my daughter, but she's in heaven with her Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. You're nothing but the biggest loser. And I feel that if Juan, and I would say this to him in court, part of what I would say to him is that if he would let me come to prison, if he's captured and found guilty, I would go there to talk about Jesus with him, about salvation with him. But that's, to me, the most important thing I can do for him is share the way. What he does with that is up to him.
Yeah. Well, Becky, I can say that I think people probably watching this also can say you are a very strong woman, and the only way that you are at this point is with Jesus Christ, and God's help in this. We are believers as well. Off
Yes.
air, I will share a little something with you, with the both of you. But I do understand. I just don't know how I would feel.
And my response to that, Maria, when people say that,
yes,
is you don't know, because God doesn't give you what you need until you need it.
Amen to that, and I understand that.
Yes.
Yes. So, wow, that's very strong, very strong. But again, it shows your faith and God's work in all of us, God's plan. Boy, you bring tears to my eyes. Never gets easy. Just does not get easy. So, Jeff, what
Yes.
are some of your memories? And it's very touching. You're thinking about Elizabeth bouncing on your knee.
Yeah.
That's
She was a fascinating individual. So to give you a little bit more background about her, when she grew up, she was engaged with all kinds of things. But one of the things that was quite unique about her was when we moved to Atlanta, we lived fairly close to the Falcons training camp. And on Thursday nights, Elizabeth would babysit when they had their Bible studies. So she became the NFL babysitter for the Falcons and other players as well over time. And so I was always worried about where her head was. Is she going to have a big head and be proud and just not be the kind of person that we expected her to be, that the money would turn her attention to other things. And it did not. She stayed true to herself and to the Lord. And she just was very strong in continuing to help in any way she could, anybody who of whatever walk of life that she had. One of the things that she did when she was a student in Atlanta was she would go and get the homeless together, and they would in Woodruff Park, and which was not a very nice place, and it was somewhat dangerous then, even 20 years ago. And she would collect their money together, and then they would go to McDonald's, and she would buy meals for these folks, and she did that as a ministry, time in and time out. Her brother and sister were very concerned that it was dangerous and she'd be hurt, but she didn't care. Her job was to serve the Lord and to serve the less fortunate. And so you contrast that with a multi tens of millions of dollar football player that she'd been staying in say Hilton Head with,
Mm-hmm.
and then going to Woodruff Park. uh so it was just, she was a study in contrasts. And I was very proud of her staying true to the Lord, and her desire to serve. One of the things that made me very mad, because I'm a physical conservative, um, she would blow all her money giving her things away to the less fortunate. If somebody needed a TV, she would give them her TV, and that
Oh.
meant her mother and I had to replace that eventually. Uh, she gave away her refrigerator.
Oh my
She
goodness.
Yeah, she, because of a family that had no refrigeration and she thought they needed it more than she needed it. She gave away her bed more than once and would sleep on the floor until she could, until we would provide another bed for her. And the more she did that, the longer we would wait to teach her a lesson, not not to do that. But
Right.
And then she'd also go into her father's closet and take clothes. And every once in a while, Jeff would say, Becky, have you seen this particular shirt? And I said, no. Well, Elizabeth had taken it and
yeah,
given it to some of the men that needed shirts
Uh,
more than Jeff did.
right.
I guess you hadn't worn it in over a year, Jeff. That's the
Yes.
rule.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So,
Oh.
so there were things like that that made Elizabeth very unique and
Mhm.
different. And
I'd
and
say yes.
when I say she's a study in contrast, she'd go from being in someone who was a multi millionaire, and she'd be
Hmm.
the next day she'd be on the street with someone who had nothing, absolutely nothing.
Right.
So
Right.
so and through that service and through that example, it led us to do other things. Like we became very involved with the homeless program in the city of Atlanta after her death, and our Bible study class would donate and provide things and go down there. We For several years we provided a Christmas for the
Hmm.
parents and the children that were homeless. So so those
Yeah.
things were really because of Elizabeth's example to us in how to serve and what we should do.
Wow. Yeah. She's again a really special, very special young lady.
Yeah,
And this is what and multiply this your Elizabeth with tens of thousands across the
yeah,
country who did
right.
good in the
Yeah,
communities and with their families.
Mhm.
Their legacy forever changed. Your lives are very different, and it sounds like even your remaining children, did not want to be there in the same town and moved away. So here, they're a little farther away. It
yeah,
changes a lot, but through God and Jesus Christ, you have, persevered and are still working at
sure.
exposing
Mhm.
this. I can tell you that we're doing the same thing with the Remembrance Project. And we'll talk about that later. And I did mention the key principles that are on our website, Jeff. Feel free to
Yeah,
go there and share it. We're fighting back the HR 4393, which is a Dignity Act going through Congress right now that will be a huge amnesty. We are defending our sheriffs. Washington State is there's a lawsuit there that we will probably be involved with once it reaches the Court of Appeals, and it's very important that we try to help our angel families to try and pick up the pieces. We have a chaplaincy program and a crisis intervention program also there on our website, but it's also reaching the policymakers. And I think that's key, and demand that they place our families first.
Mhm.
yeah,
You wouldn't think that would be a difficult thing to do, but here we have our own legislators in America legislating and negotiating with
Mhm.
illegal aliens.
Yes.
Yeah. If we faced that difficulty when we started to approach them about Elizabeth's death and why she died and who did it, and there was a major pushback from the political figures of the time. They really didn't want to meet with us. Our two senators met with us because they did something very embarrassing to themselves and they didn't want that exposed. So they agreed to meet with us, and they were very gracious and kind when they did. And it was a good meeting, but we could tell, especially Becky was pretty upset that they weren't going to do anything, and that was a problem for us, and that continues to be a problem today. It's a very complex. Immigration reform is a very complex issue, and it has all kinds of implications because of the history we've had of thousands and thousands and thousands of illegals that have crossed the border. And especially in the last 4 years, we've really
Right.
exacerbated the problem by a
Right.
hundredfold or more.
Well, let me push back a little bit on that, Jeff.
Yep.
So, illegal immigration, if we enforced our current laws,
Yes.
U.S. Code 8, 13, 24, 25, and 26, and followed our Constitution, we would not have illegal immigration.
I
Thank you.
agree.
Yes.
And so, the part I'm pushing back is complex. The media and these legislators who are reelected through campaign donations, I say that these elected officials are filling their campaign coffers while our children are filling
Right.
America's coffins.
Right.
And that's what's taking place. So, if laws were enforced upon illegal aliens and our borders secured, if you're on a visa, you overstay your visa, guess what? That opportunity gets revoked and you don't get back in. You don't get a job. You don't get any of the benefits if you're on social welfare.
Exactly.
We agree with you, and that's a good point. I'm glad you're straightening me out a little bit here.
No, I'm not so much saying it. Yes,
but
I wanted to take
but
what you said, complex, because it is out there and people think, oh,
Yep.
wow. And they make it look that way.
Yeah.
What I mentioned, the HR 4393, it is like 261 pages. But if they just enforce the law, we would be fine. Laws are enforced upon us, the citizen. We get a ticket, or maybe parking tickets. They put some sort of lock on it, right?
Yes.
Tickets, just simple parking tickets.
Right.
But yet you cross into a country illegally and you get a job, you get cash, you get a Visa card probably with money on it. I even sat by an illegal alien on a flight. He had a big manila envelope. In it were documents, money, a cell phone, and also it looked like a U.S. passport.
Really?
Yes, and this was several years ago.
Yeah.
So all this is taking place right under our nose. If laws were just enforced, then we would be just fine.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I agree. We agree.
Sadly, something like this opens our eyes to what's taking place and what's going on around us, and we have no idea. Our legislators aren't doing us any favors. They're not legislating for our benefit. I know our taxes are higher. Inflation's increased. We're $39 trillion in debt. And yet we're supposed to look the other way. We are financially supporting in different manners and medical, upwards of 40 million illegal aliens.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. And it's a travesty, and it's a danger for our nation. So we can't afford to be all things to all people around the world. And part of the national political philosophy for some people they use the term globalist, and that's they they feel we're all one happy family around the world, but we're a multitude of nations that are very different,
Mhm.
and we have different thoughts. I mean, that's part of the reason we feel that Elizabeth was murdered. This person thought of Elizabeth as property and could do anything they wanted to do. If they took their life, they had control of it. Well, we think that's absurd,
Yeah.
but that's how this person seemed to act and to feel without
Yes.
remorse.
Absolutely. And I think that if more people had Elizabeth's heart, we would take care of our own communities and,
Yes.
and just feel the value of humanity, we would be in a better place,
Mhm.
as a whole. But not everyone clearly has that mentality or that heart like
Right.
Elizabeth, and
Yeah.
especially people from other countries who are
Mhm.
raised completely different
Right.
cultures, different set of values.
Yeah.
Um, so, again, I'll say if Elizabeth's heart were widespread, this would be a better place.
Yes, it would. I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah. And when
And
we were listening to her service, when 18 years ago, as we're sitting there, I'm thinking Elizabeth really got it,
yeah,
because this service went on for, the life celebration for is the term we use nowadays. And
yeah,
that's what it was for Elizabeth. And it went on for 2.5 hours of one person after another standing up and sharing the, sorry,
it's
the
okay.
impact.
It's,
Sorry, I apologize.
no, it's okay.
So even though it's been 18 years, emotionally, you're still involved.
Yes, yeah, you are, and you can't help it. And we will do all we can to get justice for Elizabeth and give you the opportunity, Becky, of what you want to do. And we are making our phone calls and little inquiries here and there to the best of our ability, and let's see if we can't bring this monster to justice. Do y'all have anything else that you would like to share, or would you like our audience to know?
I think uh, in this day and age, with the news that we see every day, uh, the the we don't want to live our lives in fear, but we have to be aware.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and and that probably that was a strong message to me about about this person that murdered Elizabeth. Uh, you know, they're all around us, and and
yes,
and we need to be aware that they think differently than we might think, and so their actions may be as extreme as murder. So we
yes,
have to be careful.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I constantly tell our listeners, especially females, when you're out there jogging, I'm a former collegiate runner,
Yeah,
to always be aware.
Right.
right.
Yeah.
And I would also like to share that, that dash between when Elizabeth was born and and she was called home, there's more to her life than just her death. There's
Yes.
that dash in
Yes.
between that she did so much, um, tried to help so many people. And I think that's what we want people to remember, that there is so much good still here, but we
Yes.
have to be aware of the bad and the evil that's here as well.
Right. And Becky, you don't know, you will probably never know how many people Elizabeth's heart and faith
Mm,
touched. How many
Sure.
people
yes,
did she touch? And it's probably endless.
Yeah.
yes. And is still touching today.
Yes,
Yes,
absolutely.
yeah.
Well, on that note, Becky, Jeff, Bowie, thank you so much for joining us today. again, reach out anytime. We're here for you. Look
Thank
there.
you.
So God bless you. And again, we're so sorry for the loss of Elizabeth. And I just pray for you to stay strong.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much,
Thank you very much.
Maria,
Thank
for all
you.
that you do for parents like us.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you. All right. God
Right.
bless y'all.
Right.
Yeah. Well, thank you
Yeah.
very much.